Hello everybody, it's Electrocuted from Twitch, also known as _ on Reddit, and I'm back again today with a requested video kind of further discussing and answering some questions about scenes within scenes that we talked about yesterday. The video is the only other video on my playlist if you haven't had a chance to check it out. One of the biggest questions, and I want to get to it right off the bat, was from yesterday, talking about or asking, does using scenes within scenes have a negative performance issue in terms of CPU usage in OBS? My answer is no, and I'm going to have the opportunity to show you multiple times anytime that I'm in the actual OBS studio window what my CPU usage is at, because me just saying what it is isn't enough, I think, to kind of handle that for people. I want you to be able to see the proof yourself. So that will be part of this video. The next part of this video is that I wanted to quickly explain, because I think people latched on to the fact that my video was overloading yesterday. That had nothing to do with scenes within scenes. That was the user, me, being silly. I was recording in my streaming profile, which is not enough to record video with. I record my streams in 3500 bitrate with a ton of different settings. My recording profile is set up for recording, obviously, and it will not overload. So as you can see now, not choppy. Got a ton of stuff happening, no chop. I've got Far Cry even going up in the video, which I didn't have a gameplay yesterday at all. It's not scenes within scenes is an issue. I have gone ahead and posted on OBS's official forums asking for input from either someone affiliated with OBS or a developer themselves to get back to me to let me know if there is any impact whatsoever, negatively or the other way, when using scenes versus having a ton of sources. I have not yet gotten a response, and I will, however, update you as soon as I get a response from them. But right now I'm recording at a higher bit rate than I would ever broadcast in, even if I was a partner. And I'm sitting at 7% CPU usage right now. But typically when I'm streaming, and you'll get to see this also for yourself, when I'm streaming, I'm normally at about 4 to tops 12% maybe CPU usage, which is no higher at all. I used to do it the same way that you all do it now. It's no different. In fact, when it's kind of sitting still, I feel like it uses probably 3 to 4% on average. So no, I do want to show you that, and I will show you that. But for right now, I want to continue answering some questions. Secondary to that, what would be the next question? Why would I want to do this? Can you really explain that to me? Absolutely. One of the things that I mentioned yesterday that's a major component of using scenes within scenes is the non-destructive way of doing things. You only need to import something once, make it its own scene, and then use it as a source scene, and modify it however the heck you want, right? That's important. That's a major step, because if you've ever made a change to something and you've kind of duffed it a little bit or messed it up, you may never get it back the way you want it, and you've got to redo that step over and over again. In keeping with the idea of graphic designers in the way that they work, using things this way is kind of very similar to the idea of smart objects in something like Photoshop. The way that I kind of intend to mean that is that, let's use the overlay for example. If I wanted to remove this and this from my overlay, I would, and I use multiple scenes, Xbox, PS4, PC, right? I would have to go and do that for my gameplay screen, my conversation screen such as this for each device, my AFK screen, my starting soon screen. I'd have to change that at a minimum for me 12 times. 12 times I'd have to do that. Whereas in scenes, as the way that I have them embedded like this, nested, I have to do it once. I do it once and it applies to every scene that it uses it as a source scene, right? So it's a quality of life improvement that way. The next is consistency. The way that I have my stuff set up now, I make something the way I want it in the source scene, and then I can apply it everywhere else on my broadcast. For example, when I switch scenes, my UI stays consistent no matter what scene I'm in. It's always where I set it. My notifications are in the same places. Everything's in the same spot, and I can guarantee that because the source is what I change. Okay, so my layout is always the same. It brings a level of professionalism to what you're doing. There's nothing worse than being on someone's Twitch stream and stuff's just janky because every time they switch a scene, it moves or adjusts, or something's not working the way it should because it's not set up properly from scene to scene. Okay, this will always be the same and will always work. Any changes I want to make are non-destructive, and I have to change it once. That's just like 3 reasons off the top of my head why you'd want to do this. The next and final, and it's food for thought, is that it's kind of, I'm not going to say there's a right and wrong way to do this, but it's kind of one of those ways that if you do it from the very beginning, it's very easy to stay on top of your broadcast itself when you want to make changes. Again, one of those reasons might be that you play a new game. Okay, you've been playing a game forever. Maybe I'm a variety streamer, so this is important for me. But if you switch from one game to another and suddenly important UI elements are on separate sides of the screen, or that you might have your stuff now, instead of having to, basically break your broadcast to start a new game, you make those changes, apply it, it goes across everything, and you could just duplicate that source, right? And now you have multiple scenes meant for different games, and you would just switch scenes between those particular games when you play them. But being able to kind of start things, in a way that's very easy to use, very non-destructive to use, easy quality of life wise to use, and do that from the very beginning, I think is a major step in just making your life easier and making everything look great from the start. It's just those good habits to have. In terms of good habits to have, just gonna put this one in there because we're gonna talk about moving things around. If you're gonna play a new game or play a game that you've been playing for a long time, one thing you might want to do, because your viewers are most important and more important than you, make sure that your camera and your UI is not covering anything pertinent to the enjoyment of the game or understanding, what's happening in the game. For example, mini maps, your health. As an example, when I use my gameplay, I'm usually right about here, okay? I can't do that when I'm playing a game like Subnautica, when my health, my oxygen, food, and thirst are all right here. I then have my camera here. It was a big element of something that was brought up in a major thread on the Reddit this week, in the Twitch subreddit, sorry, just about things that annoy people. Think about your viewers before you think about how pretty something is. And that's why I respect the fact that people asked about, does this affect my CPU usage? Because yes, you do not want your stream to be stuttering and lose performance just for the sake of being pretty or it being easier on you. This doesn't do that. Okay, I'm throwing it out there. This doesn't negatively impact your performance as a stream. All right, let's take a look at something else here. So here we are. We're on OBS right now. And if you look here in the bottom, you'll see that my CPU usage right now is 4.85%. And I have a lot going on. Again, I'm recording much higher, much higher than I actually stream at. I have a gameplay going, and I probably have a whole hell of a lot more scenes than you do, okay? Unless you're someone like me who happens to use scenes within scenes. So you'll be able to keep your eye over here to see what kind of a CPU usage I'm getting without me having to maybe make you think I'm lying. Okay, so it's right there, free for you to look at while we do what we're doing now. There is one thing I need to quickly change before I actually walk you through how to set this up properly, but I do also need you to kind of play along with me. I want you to pretend that this is a fresh version install of OBS, meaning none of these scenes are here and none of these sources are here. Imagine this is blank, okay? That's how I'm gonna try to approach this. The next thing is that I need you to understand I can't break this because I need to be able to stream. So I'm doing this for you, I'm not doing this for me. So just try to keep in mind that I've done what I can, but you're gonna have to play along a little bit. All right, so the very first thing you would need to do, and I need to shut down my chroma key for you, give me 1 second. We're gonna come back to this. All right, give me 1 second. I'm about to break my stream. Very first thing, okay? Very first thing, if you're gonna rebuild or you're gonna try to follow along with how to do this, None of this is here. You're going to click on the plus sign and you're going to create a new scene, your very first scene. Okay, call it something using a naming convention that makes sense for you. For me, that was calling it the alpha or the omega or the boss, whatever that indicates that this is your master webcam. Great name. Okay, call it master webcam if you must. Okay, when you're done, click OK, and then go to your plus sign here at the bottom under sources, click plus, and add your video capture device, your webcam, or if you're lucky enough to be using like a DSLR, whatever you have for a webcam, a video capture device, okay, add that. That's all you do. No filters, no cropping, no nothing, okay? And to be super clear, this particular scene over here will never, ever, 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 ever get broadcast, ever. It is a master file, but I wish we could hide them. Your next step is to click on plus again. Create a slave or a beta or however you want to call it, but something that indicates that this is a slave or beta to the alpha camera. Okay, so simply enough, just call it something like that, slave camera if you have to. Click OK. Inside of this scene, okay, I don't have a chroma key right now. Inside of this scene, click on plus and add a scene. Okay, from here, make sure you're on add existing and select your alpha camera or omega, whatever you called it. Select that. Make sure you have checked make source visible and click OK. So now you've caught up to where we are right now. Alpha, not alpha. I've cropped this because obviously you can see the green screen isn't big enough, but you can do this stuff on your own time, okay? Lock the cameras if they're in place, make sure they're full screen. If you don't know how to make something full screen without stretching it, I'm going to quickly show you something that you can do here. Right click your camera in the chroma, click on transform and fit to screen. Okay, you can do this. I don't know if some people drag and drop stuff still, but if you bring in something, an element that you want to be full screen, let's say gameplay, if you, instead of having to resize it, I caught a friend doing this. Click on transform and fit to screen. It'll save your life. All right, so now this is where we're at. And this is kind of where I dropped the ball yesterday, because when I mentioned yesterday, I said to add the filters here. That's not right, and I want to explain why. When you add a master and a clone, okay, so our two things that we've pretendedly added so far, okay, if you go and add the filter, like chroma key, for example, to the clone, the one that we're in right now, okay, it will add the filter, yes, to the scene that you're in. What it will then do is go back one step in the chain of alpha, omega, beta, etc. This is why we go ahead and create two versions of the same camera. Master, slave. What you then want to do is start setting up your actual scenes that will see airtime on your broadcast. So let's do that. Okay, I'm going to set up one because I have PS4, I use a cap card, I have PS4 and PC. I haven't bothered yet doing anything with the Xbox. So let's create a game that you would broadcast together. It's going to be PC, but I'm going to call it Xbox. Okay? So we'll create a new scene, call it whatever you want. If you're setting up, just do whatever works for you, okay? But I'm going to call it Xbox just for me. Blank scene. We're now on the same page together. I have nothing in this scene. You can see that under sources. And if you look at my CPU right now, it's at 2.5 to 3.2%. Okay, let's add our camera. So we're going to add a scene. And for every scene now, this is super important that you hear me out. For every scene where you want to use, for example, a chroma keyed camera, you would add the chroma or slave or clone, whatever you called it, into the scene. Okay? Same view as the source that we took it from. So let's go back to the chroma. Okay? It's the same, right? It's exactly the same as it is in the Xbox, as it is in the Chrome or the chroma source. Okay? It's just so that's clear. This, my friends, is where you add your filter. Okay? You would right click, filter, and add whatever you wanted, such as the chroma key. Okay? You're going to have to set that up yourself because every single friggin' camera and setup and lighting and skin color and what have you is going to be different for everybody. If my hair was a different color, it's a headache. You're gonna have to do it. There's tons of videos on YouTube. If you don't know how to do this, you're gonna have fun. So here we are. We're in our Xbox scene. Now we've brought in our camera from the clone, and now we've gone ahead and set up our chroma key. Look at us go, right? You would set that up in such a way that you're not going to take up a ton of the game screen, and then lock it. Pro tip number 2, lock your sources when you've got it where you want it, okay? Now you've got an overlay. I'm assuming, because I watch a lot of streams, a lot of people leave the default Streamlabs alerts up. I'm pretty sure, and I haven't used it in a long time, I'm pretty sure that it's still a browser source. My overlay is brought to me by player.me. Okay, it's a free service. I don't get anything for saying that. I love it. I use it. That is this overlay here. Okay, it's a browser source overlay. So I've got it set up, as you can see, it's its own scene and its own source as a browser source. If you go to properties, it is a browser source. And what's super important here is to make sure that if you use any browser source within your broadcast, even if you don't use scenes within scenes, please check these 2 boxes. It'll remove a lot of headaches for you. So let's bring in the overlay. This could be any scene. I'm showing you how this is done. Go to scene, click the scene you want to import. So for this, it would be our overlay. Done. Okay. Drag and drop, basically. It's set up already. It's exactly the size, exactly like all the rest. I'd lock it. Now it'll never move and I'm totally set. Next up, gameplay. Game cap, bring in the existing game cap if you have one. Done. If not, hey, you should know how to do that if you're here. Again, rescaled. It's in its own resolution for whatever reason, no problem. Just go ahead and right click, go to filter, or not filters, right click, go to transform, my bad, and click fit to screen. It's just like Photoshop in the fact that it has layers. I want the gameplay at the back. I want my overlay always at the top so that even if I'm doing something, I don't see me blocking or the gameplay blocking or whatever I happen to have. There's an element on the screen blocking things like alerts. Once I have that locked at full screen, I'm set. Nothing else needs to be done. That's how easy it is when you have scenes set up to create new scenes using those other scenes as elements within your broadcast. Okay, so again, if I wanted to change anything within this broadcast, all I'd have to do is modify the elements I've brought in without wrecking the elements that I've set up other places in my broadcast, such as my conversation window, right? If I move stuff here within this source box, if I modify the things that are in this source box, it doesn't change anything in any of the other scenes that I actually broadcast. This is where this becomes super, super useful. And I'm trying to drill that fact home. If someone's sitting there saying, well, this isn't for me, I'm telling you, if you use more than one scene and use the same things in multiple scenes, this is friggin' great. I hope I've sold you on it. Honestly, I do. Again, you can see, there's lots going on this screen in OBS. You can see down in the bottom right, the CPU usage. I'm sitting single digit. Yeah, my computer's a little bit probably better than most. Not bragging at all. It's not the best, but it's pretty high end. But even then, I'm barely using CPU usage while recording this video. I have no reason to believe at all that there is any kind of negative impact of using scenes within scenes. I honestly stand by the fact that I think it's actually more efficient than having multiple sources. And again, just to drive the point home, I highly doubt you have as many scenes as I do. And there's a lot of stuff in here that's constantly playing. I have videos going full time. I have a lot of animated elements. You haven't seen everything in my broadcast unless you've actually been part of the stream. So I have a really, really hard time believing that this is something that is a negative versus a positive. And I just wanted to drive that home. Again, I think people got kind of hooked up on the fact that the video was streaming choppy, and that was my bad. But yeah, that's as simple as it is. This is going to come down to, now that I've showed you how to do it, this is going to come down to a lot of experimentation for you, right? You're going to have to take what you know now and apply that, because I could sit here and show you a ton of different things that are of no interest to you, but you could find ways to make it yours. And I think that's kind of the fun thing about every tutorial. Some people get lost in the fact, well, I didn't want to do it that way. They showed you though how to learn. Like the step where you go once someone teaches you how to walk is totally up to you. It's not on the teacher that told you how to or taught you how to walk. Yeah, so I don't want to take up a ton more time. There's one last thing that I've seen come up quite a bit in a whole bunch of different threads on the subreddit lately. So I just want to go over one little thing. Okay, again, it's kind of a big deal that you understand that you should lock all your stuff so that you don't wreck your stream once you've set everything the way you want it. This is a terrible window to do this with. Let's go here. This is just one of those little tidbits a lot of people probably will know, but some people don't. So here I am, and you can still see what I'm doing here. If you unlock your items and click them, okay, you see the red window come up around me here. If you want to be able to crop your window, let's see, for example, I can reach out here, right? But I don't want to block things this far out. I only want to be right here, and that's where I want to stop. If I lift my hand, I don't want it to be in the broadcast. Okay, hold Alt, don't know how to do it on Mac, don't care. Hold Alt and drag. See how the bar up above here went green? Okay, leave it like that. If that's how I want it, then lock it up and you're done. If you're having problems where you're seeing that you're cropped and you don't want to be cropped, if you happen to see a green bar here on any of the boxes that you're using, that means that it's been modified. Okay, so you would just hold Alt again, make sure Alt is being held, or else you're going to drag your actual item. Hold Alt until it goes red and let go. Now you're at the maximum distance of the actual source. Okay, and I need to actually transition that for that to work. That camera is actually not, I've cropped it already. But anyways, that's the point of something I wanted to get across. The only other thing that I was asked about, other than helping show how this is all set up and get to the performance issue, was the transitions that I used yesterday and that I've tried to stay away from today. What you just saw is a transition that I created here. Let's do it a little bit more dramatically. Okay, so that's how I transition during my stream. If you want to learn how to make those, because it was asked of me, what you're looking for when you go to YouTube is Stinger transitions with alpha transparency. I'll say that again. Stinger transitions with alpha transparency. It's absolutely vital that you import your Stinger transitions with alpha transparency, otherwise it will not work in OBS. There are quite a few tutorials, streamers much bigger than me, that have made a couple. Again, it's going to be one of those things that you have to be willing to invest the time in. It's not an easy learn. The videos are not 5 seconds. If you're someone that gets turned off by that, then none of this is for you. But it's not that hard to learn. You can learn them for free. They don't cost you anything. You will need After Effects, but you can get an After Effects trial for, I believe, 7 days for free, as long as you have a credit card to sign up with Adobe. You can cancel it right away and use the item for the application for 7 days. More than enough time for you to make multiple Stinger transitions. I made like 7 or 8. No cost to me. So yeah, might want to be something that you look into if you do want those transitions. Other than that, it's up to you to learn now. I hope I've answered all the questions. I hope I've proven that this isn't something that just completely bogs your computer down or ruins OBS for you. Like I said, I stand by the fact that I think it's actually more efficient than having multiple sources used multiple times, because you're only calling one item. And why you would want to use them, I hope I've covered that for you too. And as always, if you have any questions, please just get at me and I will do my absolute best to get back to you and help you if I can. Thanks guys. Have a good one.